All right, we're back here with another episode on the Desert Shift. I believe this is episode 5. Today's guest, we have high performance intern Nick Pearson. Nick Pearson, thank you very much for coming on. Appreciate you. How you been? How's everything been going since you went back to Michigan State? Right?
Yep.
How's everything been?
Pretty great.
Good.
To be honest.
Wonderful.
Here, a lot better than Michigan. A lot better weather.
Yeah, that'll do it. Is it hot? I've never been to Michigan. Is it like typically pretty hot there? Is it like a humid thing or is it cold? What you got? I
Well,
can't imagine it's cold right now.
Yeah, well, I'm here in the summer, and then
Okay.
so really hot Arizona summer,
Yeah.
and then I go back to Michigan fall, winter, and like early fall, really nice.
Really nice, right?
Really
yeah.
nice.
Like really autumny, like
Yeah.
changes colors, all that good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, but honestly, like 70, 75 humid feels hotter than like 110 here.
Really?
Dry.
It's that humid?
Yeah.
Oh, hell no.
Yeah.
See, like I can't do that. Like every year, my mom, for her birthday typically, like in years past when I was younger, we would go to Mexico.
Yeah.
I'm half Mexican. We'd go somewhere, right? And my mom's like, she loves the humidity, and it's August 1st is her birthday. And oh my God, dude, I remember going to like Puerto Peñasco, like all these places, and I'm like, dude, it's 95 degrees, mom, and it's 80% humidity.
Mhm.
I'm like, I am just like, you walk out and like you'll have glasses on, and the whole thing just like fogs in. You might as well just
Exactly.
walk out like
Yeah.
this. It's so
Yeah.
brutal.
And then you get into like the winter, which, it's been mild lately, but it's, I don't know, early November
Mhm.
to February, March, like somewhere around March.
Mhm.
And then, you get May, pretty decent weather, still gets down to like the 50s sometimes.
That's not too bad.
And then it gets humid again.
Oh my God. See, I don't know. I don't know if I could do humidity, but
Yeah.
nonetheless, it's good to have you back. I know that last time we worked together, it was really cool to see all the things that you pushed forward. Remind me, what was the big thing? Because I remember you did something with, I believe it was hitting,
Yep.
correct? So I think, give me a little bit of details of like what you went into and like kind of like this is something that a lot of the interns, when you're first interning or even like pretty much everyone interns really because it's
Yeah.
like just getting used to the systems.
Mhm.
To be fair, like it's a really difficult thing to just like walk in and just like know. As you know, like our
Yeah.
internal stuff is just like a lot, so you kind of have to get it underneath you a little bit. But yeah, what did you work on with the hitting guys last time?
Yeah, so what, like 2 months in, probably once I got pretty situated with everything.
Okay.
Brought up the idea of neural priming for hitting. Driveline has an old EEG study.
That's really cool.
Primarily involving like neural clutter decreases as a hitter sees more pitches throughout a day.
Okay.
Saw a neural clutter decrease, so I had the idea with my neuroscience major that maybe we can do some sort of intervention prior to hitting
Okay.
that kind of facilitates that neural clutter
Mhm.
to be released earlier or to just get rid of it altogether.
Gotcha. So like, would the idea be like, okay, like picking up pitches is easier because you're like more focused, I guess? Put it in like layman's terms, because like I'm a ding dong, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
you're a you're a neuroscience guy. So like, but it's like, what would be the goal of it? So then I can grasp it and ask you a better question.
So in a way, picking
Okay.
up pitches could be easier.
Okay.
Most of it is swing decision.
Oh, okay.
That swing decision is probably the largest part of it, which is
Okay.
why smash factor kind of cycles in there so well. So you look at previous literature revolving neural priming. A lot of guys already, regardless of where they are, do juggling. Juggling's a great
Juggling?
one. Yes, juggling.
Okay.
Prior studies, I wish I could just name authors off the top of my
for
head.
real.
But you have visual cortex activation, you have
Okay.
motor cortex activation. So kind of like vestibular priming. The
Okay.
whole idea is to prime that in the beginning before activity
For sure.
so it doesn't have to kind of ramp up while you're
Yeah.
doing it.
It's almost like they're like you're deleting the wasted reps of like,
Yeah.
okay, I am not in a position. It's like instead of like just going under the bar and squatting, for example, like you're probably like, hey, I'm gonna do a couple of things to like warm my
Yep.
hips up, warm
Yep.
my hamstrings
You,
up,
you do
stuff
your
like that.
movement prep.
Yeah,
You get
exactly.
all your movement prep down. You make sure whatever it is, whether you're doing rolls, whether you're
Yeah.
just making sure you can keep your spine stable throughout multiple hip positions.
Yeah.
You're kind of priming it early, and then you get into the big brunt of it.
That's really cool. That's really cool. I feel like the side, like the brain side of the world in baseball is one of the more neglected areas. And I think it's kind of for sport in general, just
Yep.
because like everybody looks at like the physical capabilities
Mhm.
primarily. And I do think there's a lot to be said for like mentally training yourself. It
Yep.
was a conversation I had earlier with an athlete and Gargis, and it was just like, wow, like how powerful our minds are for us to
Mhm.
be in a position of like, okay, if you're beating yourself up constantly. I know in our last podcast, me and Gargis kind of talked about like the psychology of it is just like if you're just constantly reinforcing yourself like I'm terrible, I can't do this, I'm
Mhm.
not very good, I can't throw a strike, like you're never going to throw a strike, you're never going to give yourself the opportunity to succeed. And so it's like we don't, I feel like a lot of times like MLB orgs or just anybody in general, like we typically just like ignore that as like
Mhm.
you either have it or you don't. Like
Yeah.
it's really cool that you took a step forward and like we're like, hey, this is something we can train potentially. What were the results of that? Did we find anything cool with that? Inconclusive, need more data.
Yeah, so
Typically, typical.
so last summer, I got basically put down to a pilot study
Okay.
because we had traject come up, we had
Yeah, that's
hack
true.
attack and all that
Yeah,
happen,
yeah.
a lot of smash ball. So this summer we're doing it again.
Nice.
Whole different paradigm.
That's super
Yeah,
cool.
whole different paradigm. Instead of bat to ball, we're doing bat speed days because that's straight baseball. I pitch
Okay.
hack attack.
Yeah, yeah.
Pretty much just keeps it as least variable as possible. So
Yeah,
we
because
can
that's a
get
big thing
solid
for like
data.
data collection. Is
Yeah.
like you want to know all the variables and you
Mhm.
want to be able to manipulate a couple on your own, but you want to limit all the I believe they're uncontrolled variables, correct? Of like
Yeah.
things that are like
Confounding, yeah.
exactly. Okay, selfishly I have to ask, like, is there anything that we can do on the throwing side that would be cool with this? Because that seems really cool to me. Like
Uh-huh.
I don't, my brain goes to like, okay, instead of having an athlete have to like with pitching, like pitch design or like hitting a specific spot, is there anything that I can clear his mind or just get him in a better mindset or like you said, declutter him to where then that task at hand is like truly the one thing he's working on rather than like those 15, 25 throws are kind of
Yeah.
wasted. Is there anything on the throwing side we can do?
I mean, of course, it's hypothetical.
Sure.
But in a neural aspect, you have juggling does all those things,
Okay.
plus it releases BDNF, which is brain-derived neurotrophic factor,
Okay.
which is the prime substance for I don't want to say like hippocampal growth, like memory retention, memory consolidation,
Okay.
learning.
Sure. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so in a way, you do all your movement prep stuff. Make
Okay.
sure that's just down to the T.
Yeah.
You don't really want to have movement prep stuff that doesn't help
Yeah.
when it comes to the field, which there's a lot of that out
Oh,
there.
I'm sure.
Yeah,
I can
yeah,
only imagine. There's a
yeah.
lot of shit. Like, I had somebody text me the other day about like I think it was like water bags or something
Mhm.
like that, and I'm like, I'm sure they have a place. Didn't we have the conversation
Yeah,
yesterday
yeah,
too? It
we
was like,
did.
geez, like I'm sure there's things that are great about it, but
Yeah.
like you don't want that to be like your meat and potatoes. Like
Mhm.
it could be a little thing. It could be an appetizer. It's the chips and salsa, but it's not the fajitas. Like you
Exactly.
have to keep the main thing that's
Yeah.
gonna get you better.
Yeah, so hypothetically, pitching side, you have guys juggle beforehand. You
Okay.
have all those studies backing it up. Maybe when you're trying to learn a new pattern, when you're doing your drop steps, anything
Sure.
like that, maybe it just clicks faster.
Okay.
You have that learning increase, that learning speed
Huh.
increase. Could work there.
Okay. Is
Of
there any other
course.
things other than juggling? Because I think about myself and I'm like, I'm not the greatest. I'm really good with hand-eye
Mhm.
coordination. Like I'm a gamer. I love it. I can do this all day. I'm pretty decent at like manipulating a baseball. Probably a little bit of skill behind that
Yep.
as well. But like I can't juggle worth a shit.
Mhm.
Like if I could do two, but as soon as I add that third one, I'm a zoo. It's gonna hit the ground.
But learning it is what facilitates that.
Okay, so you're
learning
saying
how
that
to do
would be
it.
the thing.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
And one of the things we're looking for in the hitting one is with the new paradigm, we have the baseline weeks where they're not doing it. We have the
Yeah.
intervention weeks where they are doing it. And then we have kind of a washout week where they stop doing it.
And then see what happens
Yep.
when they don't do it compared to when they did do it.
And
Wow.
we're gonna try and see if that motor coordination continues, if they
That's
fall
so
back
sick.
to baseline, or if they maybe drop a little bit, but that's still
Yeah.
there.
That is really fascinating. Wow.
And in terms of like other things besides juggling,
Mhm.
the brain's insane because there's so many different pathways.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's different things. You can have vestibular, which is kind of getting touched on here now.
Okay.
A lot of vestibular priming. You could, I don't know, maybe hop on an assault bike, just get your blood flowing. Exercise is one of the greatest studied things in terms of that BDNF release.
Okay. So just like overall getting the body temperature up, just
Yeah.
moving around. I
Yeah.
think that's like I think you asked this today when I was having guys roll, and I
Mhm.
feel like you probably have a lot better just based off your background and just like the way you speak, I can tell. It's like you probably have a lot better understanding of like why something works.
Mhm.
But like to me, because I'm just like kind of cavemanish in this sense, is like you're like, hey, why are you having that guy roll on a mat,
Yeah,
right?
pop quiz.
Yeah, and I was just like, I don't know if I can organize it, like fucking, I don't know. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I think that's where it's really cool. Of like it brings together skill coaches, right? Of like a pitching trainer, a hitting trainer. That's like we are very, very. I would like to say here at Driveline, we're experts at that. We're
Uh-huh.
very good at being able to dissect that and get
Yep.
you better in that sense. And I love being able to have somebody like you or somebody. Clayton Thompson is another great guy that I take a lot of reading from. That he posts some stuff and writes some
Mhm.
stuff. Bryce Kreider is another strength trainer that we have. That they really like push me, and you guys like push me to think about like, okay, it's not just like this outcome that's really cool. It's like, why did you do that, and
Yep.
why did that thing work? I
And
think
that's
there's a
almost what
lot.
matters more than the
Truly.
outcome.
No,
Yeah,
it really
because then
does.
knowing why lets you apply it to more guys.
Exactly. And then you can start to manipulate little things for
Mhm.
this guy because not every athlete's going to be exactly the same.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to learn how to manipulate different constraints, different movement patterns, different whatever to achieve that next
Mhm.
goal. So, was I on the right track? Is it kind of the same thing with the rolling, like having those guys roll, like just like it
Yeah, yeah.
kind of declutters them a little bit and like gets them primed a little bit and
Yeah,
going?
yeah.
All right, cool.
And you touched on organization, which
Yeah.
in my opinion, a warm up, any movement prep should be about organizing the body through range.
Yeah.
In any position you're in, you should be able to organize the
Yeah.
body. I love the term. I learned it freshman year from I took a IH class, like a writing class basically.
Okay.
The professor loved the term kinesthetic experience.
Kinesthetic experience.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's the aesthetics with kinesiology, of course. So
Hmm.
I basically took it and I said, okay, as you're moving throughout space,
Okay.
you need to have that experience, that aesthetic experience through
Okay.
all your senses to
Yeah.
be able to organize yourself. And
Okay.
I think that might be what kind of distances like the programs I write from other guys here.
Okay.
Is I really focus on that organization.
I like that.
Um, of course, time and place for it.
For sure.
To
For
time and
sure.
place for it for sure, but like that early guy comes in, that freshman in high school, that sophomore in high
Yeah.
school, you're gonna see those big gains. But the thing I want to touch on first is being able to organize your body. You know, motor learning, just
Yeah,
straight off the
absolutely.
bat, organize it, and then pound everything you can.
Well, dude, it's crazy you say that because it's so noticeable in throwing
Mhm.
of like when you have a younger athlete or an athlete that's like maybe when I say coordinated, I think people get messed up with this in terms of like they think it's unathletic or
Mhm.
they're like tripping or clumsy. It's like no, you're not uncoordinated in that sense. You just don't know how to dynamically move within ranges of motion that you can move into,
Yeah.
right? You see them throw and you're like, God, like there is an aesthetic piece of the throw that like makes it look pretty, and you're like that you can tell it's efficient.
Mhm.
And like you'll see a younger guy throw, and it's like that as a coach, you just have to have some patience. Like
Mhm.
you don't need to like beat them into the ground and like tell them like, hey, it needs to look better. Like I'm sure they probably want it to look better, but like you said, like you can accomplish that in the weight room side of
Yep.
things. And I think that's a really, really great point for you to make right now is just like being able you can do it all the time like
Mhm.
and it's as simple as just like when we talked about getting outside yesterday of like we want to have a group in Arizona that is going down from like 10 to 12 or something like that. We run a
Mhm.
2-hour group
Yep.
and having like sprints and having a team environment and
Mhm.
getting out into the grass and being able to organize and like you don't want to be the one guy that's always last like
Yeah.
as the unathletic fellow. I was always the one doing karaoke and like hold on let me like make sure I don't trip over myself.
Yeah.
By default, I remember like training with like a couple dudes that are now in the big leagues that I grew up with, and like they were so good at it after like age 14, and I
Mhm.
was awful at it.
Yeah, and one of the things that's scary, that is why I try and touch on it as early as possible in development, which is why I think like youth guys,
Yeah,
younger guys should be rolling, playing around, doing
yeah,
everything they can,
for
is because
sure.
after a certain age, especially as you age, I believe it's somewhere around 23,
Okay,
the plasticity, so the ability for your brain to change greatly diminishes.
really?
So
Oh,
hitting it before then, you have this 24-year-old, which he still might have some plasticity, of course, and
yeah.
there's still ways to elicit that plasticity,
Uh-huh.
but it's not necessarily just like natural anymore.
Yeah. It might take where it
Yeah,
might take a 12-year-old, let's just say it for some arbitrary numbers, like a month,
Mhm.
right? It might take that 26-year-old like 6 months. Is that a fair assumption of like it's just going to take him a
Yeah.
lot longer? It's
Yep.
almost like training age
Yep.
in a way.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then you have to apply those interventions too,
Yeah.
which in these younger kids who brains changing crazy,
Mhm.
crazy BDNF in there,
Yeah.
it just happens.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is really, really cool. And I'm a psychology major, and
Mhm.
I knew just based off the conversation that we had yesterday and the way that like you love to just like, I'll say something of like how I'm thinking about something, and you'll be just like, why? Be like, come on, man, like fuck off. Like, can I just have my moment real quick? But you don't let me have it. And that's a good thing. Like, it can't just be like an ego-driven thing. Like, I love that there's like this environment that we create here is not like you can't just talk out of your ass. You can't just talk out of your neck and like just say, oh, this works. You're like, there are people like you, there are people like Pisani that hopefully I'm going to have on the show at some point, which would be awesome, to just talk about those things, because you guys are constantly like, why, how, what's your idea? Does it make sense? Do you know about that? And I'm like, no. But now I'm going to go, I know when this podcast is done, I'm going to go look up. I'm probably going to ask you again what the hell that acronym is. And I'm going to be like, what can I do to increase that? Because it's so big for just like motor learning in general.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which, by the way, if you didn't know, on Slack, there is a book club that is being held on Thursdays. Yep. I read the initial one. You should hop in that. I think you'd have some really good takes in it. It's ran by Clayton. He just like wants to like read the literature more, and that's something that I'm really, really into. And we're gonna meet on tomorrow for it, and I'm really stoked to have that, because I think that's, you know, we talk about being general in the weight room of like train the right characteristics in there. It's kind of the same thing in just like motor learning in general, right? It's like you just need to be an overall like quote unquote athlete. You have to be athletic. And there's so many different ways you can facilitate that. So you should hop in that. I want you to read that and give me your takes.
Yeah, and about like the why thing, I ask Pisani all the time about it because, you know, newer interns, you got to challenge them.
Sure.
Which I was challenged so much last year.
I'm sure.
And you know, it's almost aggravating. Like you have this idea and someone's like, explain it.
Yeah.
And in a way, sure, it might be aggravating, but it also lets you organize it in your own brain where, you know, sure, I have this kinesthetic idea and you ask me to explain it. And of course, I have the idea up in my head and I know how it works. I need to be able to verbalize it to athletes.
Yeah.
Right there. That's how you do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what's been getting me on, like, I know you said you wanted to ask me about like kind of the newer stuff that I've been kind of doing with some of our throwers. And I love being able to talk. I have a good friend of mine that's in pitching right now. He's a director of pitching at another facility, and he really like changes. When I talk to him, I always feel like I walk away thinking about throwing just a little bit differently. The two guys that are there are awesome. I really, really enjoy talking with them. And it's just like being able to have those conversations. Isn't it like, I know it's a psychological thing. It's like when you're able to learning something and writing, right, like reading it is one thing. Reading it and then writing it down with your hand is a whole nother step, which is another really good layer. Like the next layer, in my opinion, would be like teaching it to somebody else. So then it's just ingrained in your brain even more and even more. Exactly. And you're being able to just like make those pathways in your brain of like, oh yeah, at some point, if you talk about it enough, you're like, I know exactly what this is.
Yeah, it's like you're studying for a test.
Yeah.
The best way to honestly learn it is to explain it to your friend who knows nothing about it.
Yeah. And like get them to somewhat take away the idea or the concept.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a really, really cool thing. So, yeah, so let's talk about like the training stuff of what questions you have about like the why, the what, the how, all that stuff.
Yeah, so last year you were very, I guess, solo ingrained in pitching. You know, pitching was you were on that side.
Yeah.
Other side of the facility, that was you.
Yeah.
You know, you'd come over here sometimes to do a couple
every
things.
once in a while. Yeah.
This year it seems you've taken like that autonomy that you now have as a guy who's kind of built his repertoire. And you're almost delving more into, I don't want to say the strength side, but kind of that movement capacity, movement prep side of things.
Yeah. Yeah. So I went to go talk with one of my friends, and he just like really challenged me to like, hey, like, you know, why do you do the things that you do? And like, I really didn't have any good answers for him. And I was like, damn, like, I really wish I had a better answer for him in that moment. That, and it's really hard because I think that I'm kind of getting, I've seen a lot of throwing over the years. Like I think this is I don't know, I'm 27 now. I probably started coaching in like when I was 22, I think 23. So like year 4 or year 5 now. And I think that like it's one thing to be like absurdly strong, right? And there's a reason like you don't see bodybuilders throw 100 miles an hour. It's like they just don't have like the capacity to do it. They don't have the mobility. They don't have like the positions to hit it, right? And so it really made me wonder, like, okay, after this conversation with my friend, I was like, okay, if I'm looking at a guy and like I see this thing in his throw and I'm like, whoa, that doesn't look very good. Aesthetically, I can tell. You look at it in a biomechanics lab and you're like, wow, that's the marker and that's the metric that we're using, and I can tell that it's poor. I want to be able to hammer that thing before he throws. So when he gets to throwing, and I guess this kind of comes back to the neurological stuff that you were talking about, is like, I don't want the first time that guy to hit counter rotation is in his throw. Like, yes, our guys on the HP staff, you guys do a phenomenal job of giving them a good warm up. But I do think that there's something for just like getting into some deep ranges of motion, breathing through them, feeling a little bit more comfortable, and also like just like slightly giving them a little bit more room to like work within those like ranges, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm not the greatest at explaining it yet, but that's just kind of like my thought process on it, is like the counter rotation thing. Like I like for one of the athletes right now, like he really struggles like being able to like basically hold this counter rotation, right? His idea was like he just like gets into extension like a ton, which is a fine thing. But it's like if I can just get him to get you, he doesn't know what this feels like at all. If I can get him to feel that before he throws, I feel like he's going to have a better understanding of how to accomplish that when he goes to throw a baseball.
And he will.
And he
Yeah,
will?
yeah,
Okay.
he will.
So I'm on the right track then. So that's comforting. That makes me feel good.
And it's great that you're doing that, because we can see things on the strength side, of course.
Yeah.
But you're with those guys throughout every session they have over on the pitching side. You see things we don't. You have the eye for it.
Yeah.
And of course, you might be able to convey that to us a little bit, but
Mhm.
there's no better, I guess, evidence than just firsthand. You see it, you know exactly kind of what has to happen,
Yeah.
and you have the modalities to kind of make that happen.
Yeah, and I think the autonomy, like, I don't know if it's a confidence thing, but I also, like, just shout out to Toby Nagel. Like, did you meet Toby?
Yeah.
Yeah. Toby was, like, the man with that. Gargus is awesome with this, is like, dude, like, you have really good ideas. Like, you need to go and do them and, like, talk about them and educate people with them. And I think it just, like, really, again, that environment that we create here is, like, it's going to give coaches the autonomy to, like, go do it. As long as you have the best interest of your athletes, you have a really solid idea behind it. It's not like I'm just like, you know, throwing shit at a wall and just hoping it sticks. Like there is a general idea that I have that I believe is going to work, that has some science behind it. And ultimately, like just being able to have the confidence in myself as a coach to be like, you know what, I'm going to go do this. And I can say this. I said this to an athlete yesterday in a remote meeting. Like he was like, hey, like why haven't I been doing this stuff for the last like 4 months? It's like, well, 4 months ago, I wasn't this good of a coach.
Yeah.
I really didn't know any of this stuff. Like, and that's hard because I feel like a lot of people don't want to admit that they, at one point, they weren't good, or maybe good is arbitrary. It's like, you know, you're always trying to progress yourself.
You'll
and
never be an expert.
Exactly.
Straight up.
Yeah, like you're always growing,
Yeah.
right? Like and if you're not, like that's probably a problem in and of its own.
Yeah.
So I think that like I just really wanted to go out there and send it a little bit. And I was kind of tired of just seeing guys, like seeing stuff on the skill side of things and throwing. And then in the weight room, like they're getting strong, but I just really wanted to push them more and see like, okay, what more can we do? Because there's guys in here that like just get after it. You like, I mean, Juan Verduzco, just animal. Colby Roy, who's in here right now, just animal. Peyton Denny, just dudes that are like, give me anything. They want to work on it 24 hours a day. Like they would eat, sleep, shit. They do all of it. They're like, I just want to get better at the game of baseball. So I think that's the coolest part when you find athletes that can do that and really have confidence in you.
Yeah.
So.
And I think the coolest part about Driveline in general is, especially as an intern, you still have that autonomy.
For sure. Oh, yeah.
I could go out and say, I want to try this. I talked to Kaz about it. He's like, sounds like a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
Go do it.
Yeah. You have to. Like, you're never going to... My buddy used to tell me this when I was training to throw. He was like, all right, you're standing on the edge of the cliff. And I tell my girlfriend this. I've told a lot of my friends this one. And this one always, like, kind of messes people up because... the immediate answer is kind of like scary. So you're standing on a cliff and there's a massive, like it's 200, 300, 400 feet, right? You're going to live, but there's 50% rocks.
Yep.
There's 50% water. You can't see where the rocks are at. They're scattered throughout. That's kind of like training really, really hard because you don't know what's going to happen. And it's also kind of like coaching. You don't know what's going to happen until you just try it. So are you going to be the guy that like looks over the cliff and goes, fuck, that's really far. I'm kind of scared. I'm just going to turn around. That person will never know what it's like to jump off that cliff and hopefully hit rocks. You will fail eventually. Those are the rocks, by the way, for those people that didn't get that analogy. But the times that you hit the water and you swim, oh my God, it's like the best feeling in the world when you're like, my athlete bought into it. I had a really great idea, I felt like. A lot of people helped me out with it, and so it had a good team collaboration to it. It's like one of the most fulfilling parts of the job, I feel like.
Yeah, just finding a philosophy that works. One of the ones I love is just the common sense philosophy.
What's that?
You see something, You think of some sort of implementation to maybe fix
Okay.
it.
Okay.
You implement it, see if it fixes it.
And if it
fixes
doesn't, it's like
nice. If it doesn't,
clearly didn't work.
you think of something else and you
It's
go
really
for it
that
again.
simple. Yeah,
Yeah,
common
it's
sense.
that simple. It's not really, it doesn't work and oh no, you're done.
You're
Like
a
you can't
failure.
do anything
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
There's something that's gonna work. Go
Mhm.
back to the drawing board, shove it back out.
Yeah.
And an analogy I really like, which I think influences a lot of my philosophy,
Mhm.
especially with Juan. Um,
Love
um, I read a book by Peter Attia
that guy. Mhm.
called Outlive, and in
Okay.
the first couple pages, he was a med student. He dropped out of
Okay.
med school because of a reason of he didn't really like how the medical field kind of addressed problems. They addressed
Okay.
symptoms and not the baseline
Not
of
the
it.
underlying stuff that's
Yeah.
causing that problem. Okay.
Yeah, and in the first couple pages of his book, he talks about how he had this reoccurring dream during med school of he was at the bottom of this building and this guy, he had a basket in his hands,
Okay.
maybe a hat, something like that.
Sure.
And this guy on top of the building kept throwing eggs off. And in his dream, his goal was to catch all the eggs
Okay.
before they hit the ground.
Sure.
And he'd eventually just not be able to catch all of them, and they'd just start splattering.
Yeah, like at some point your
Yeah.
basket's full. It's
Yeah.
like, where do I put them?
And
Okay.
he said he was in his dream one day, and he kind of, it might not have been in his dream, but he had this realization of what if he just went to the top of the building and stopped the guy from throwing
It's
the
like,
eggs.
stop throwing the fucking
Yeah,
eggs.
yes. So with Juan, the things Juan's going through,
Yeah.
of course you could just keep pushing everything on,
Yeah.
and you might have these breakdowns farther down the road, or you can address the problem right now and
Yeah.
not have to worry about any of that.
Very true. I when you said that about what he's going through and like
Mhm.
in the shoe thing, I was like, damn, it's literally just a band-aid.
Yeah.
That is not actually addressing like, okay, again, with the way that your freaking brain works is like, why would I do that when
Mhm.
I can actually get to the root of the problem
Yep.
and fix that? So then
Yep.
that thing doesn't even exist anymore.
Yep.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's a really cool analogy of like, yeah, like at some point you're gonna run out of time of like you're just gonna like run out of things to do.
Mhm.
Like you have to understand the underlying cause of why those things are happening. Like
Yeah.
if my bicep is hurting, it's like, dude, you probably should address that at some point. Like if you're throwing nonstop, it's like clearly okay, something in my throw mechanically or my capacity work in terms of like my strength or mobility is not allowing my bicep to accept that force of throwing.
Yep.
Instead of just like taking time off, crushing ibuprofens, or red hotting it. It's just like, dude, figure it out. Is it a
Yeah.
workload issue? Like, get with a high performance guy. Be
Yeah.
like, is it a strength issue? Like, that's
Yeah.
the way to go about it.
Like right there, maybe your bicep just can't accept the deceleration
Yeah.
that it needs. Right there.
Yeah.
Try and fix it. See if it happens. If it doesn't work, figure something else.
Figure something else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, I also want to touch on that with Juan is like, I think guys really enjoy respect and like, the best program is one that you believe in and you buy into, right?
Yep.
I feel like when you're willing to go out of the box and try shit that you're like, hey man, and especially when you're honest with an athlete. Like I said this to Peyton Denny when he first started training. He was an academy athlete actually, and then graduated and came to me and I was like, look man, like you've been throwing plyo balls for a long time since you were like 13 years old. It's been a while. You're now 18. That's 5 years of throwing these things. Like you've made some really, really great progress for sure. Absolutely did the right stuff, but still needed a little bit of extra stuff and needed to get more into the nuance and the nitty gritty. I straight up told him and his dad, who is awesome, I was like, Field, Peyton, I don't know if this is going to work for sure, but I can guarantee you this. I'm trying my absolute ass off.
Yep.
And he looked at me and he's like, great. That's all I care about. I think athletes really appreciate that. And I think it just like, they buy in even more. And they're like, man, that guy really cares about me. Like I'm not only going to show up for myself today, but I kind of want to show up for my coach because that guy is like time, effort, energy. Like I know when I go home, I'm looking at video sometimes and I'm looking on my, my Biomech viewer or whatever it is, because it bothers me that I want every guy that I work with to just throw 100.
Yeah.
I want it to be perfect. So I know that it just means a lot to those guys to be able to like take the extra time to make like a custom program, I guess, which I guess everybody gets here. But when you really sit down with them and like talk with them, it like makes a big difference for them.
And one of the things I've seen with coaches at college level anywhere is that lack of interpersonal connection. If you don't have some sort of depth with the athlete, one, you're not going to be able to describe things like their program to them. You can't really, maybe you're sitting there describing, hey, we're putting this in. This is a really goofy exercise. It's going to feel weird.
Yeah.
But it's going to do exactly this.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, of course, back to the drawing board. But
Restart.
if you don't have that relationship with an athlete, you say that and they're just like face value.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do it.
I'll try
Yeah,
it.
I'll maybe buy in a little bit. If it doesn't work in the first week, maybe.
If it, dude, sometimes it's like
Yeah.
4 throws. If they're
Yeah.
like, you tell a guy, you're like, hey, just like try this out. And you don't give them any explanation. I've definitely done this in the past. Just
Mhm.
like, try this out. Like, how'd you like that? And I'm like, it's all right, And then 3 throws later, I'm like, they're stopped doing it. And I'm like, why'd you
Yeah.
stop? He's like, just didn't like it.
Mhm. And I thought one of the problems I'd have since I'm 21 would be kind of having that, I guess, ethos, that feeling of authority around
Sure.
athletes.
hmm
But I've found that being younger really helps me connect with them.
Oh,
They
absolutely.
they're able to tell me way more.
Yeah.
And in turn, they still trust me even though I'm not, 30 years old.
I was gonna
And
say
they
they're gonna
still give
relate
me
to you more,
yeah.
man. They're like, you're my same age. You
Mhm.
obviously took a different path than I am, but like it's still your passion. And they're like, they probably feel like, at 21 years old, I know I was going through a lot different problems than I am at 27.
Yeah.
So I feel like it can be a blessing and a curse in a way, because I know that there's like, that was like when I interviewed my first time in indie ball. I was the pitching coach, and the GM, or the owner slash GM, was like, "Hey, you're 26." I was 26 at the time. He goes, "You realize this is like the Atlantic League's it's a very good league. It's like AAA, a lot of AAA big league guys." And he's like, "I got to ask you a question. Like, I killed the rest of it." He goes, "I got to ask you. You're 26. Like, how do you get any of these guys to listen to you? Like,
Mhm.
that guy's there was multiple guys that had been in the big leagues for like 5 years that were 33, 34. And there definitely were guys that just like didn't give a shit. But
Mhm.
there were also plenty of guys that they were like, that's fucking cool. That
Yeah.
guy obviously has dedicated a lot of time. And it shows that like at 26 or 21 that you have put in a lot of work
Mhm.
to get where you don't accidentally get to become, or you don't accidentally become a two-time intern. I don't accidentally become a pitching coach in the Atlantic League, right? Like those things happen for a reason, because of, I say luck a lot, but I get told it's like we work hard, you work
Mhm.
hard, and you deserve those things. So, yeah, I think our age is like it definitely can be looked at a barrier, but I think it's a much better way of looking at it. Is like it's a great way for you to connect with your athletes for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. Um, you mentioned something regarding, yeah, you have this cool thing,
Mhm.
and at some point it's kind of athlete side. You have those athletes who just like, maybe they were on this program in high school and college, and they're just like, that's what they want. They want that exact thing the whole time.
Yeah,
And so you throw new things at them and they're not opening the door for it.
yeah,
So at one point it's a little athlete sided,
yeah,
but
for sure.
coaches, by building that relationship, maybe you can unlock that door.
Even if you get 5%, you
Yeah,
do 5%, you get a little bit
exactly.
more, you get a little bit more, you get a little bit more. You
Mhm.
do that over. You might break down a guy for 6 months, and he
Yeah.
might finally trust you at month 6, but it's better than him never trusting you, because
Yep.
you're never going to get anywhere without it.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't think it was you yesterday. No, it was Pisani. Me and Pisani, like I've started to take this approach and I'm sure we'll do a meeting because college summer's coming up, and
Mhm.
we're gonna get the amount of people that are signing up is like, if you haven't signed up, by the way, call and sign up, because it's gonna get bananas in here. It is already, if you've looked at all of the like all of the messages, like holy hell, I'm excited, but man, that's a lot of folk.
Mhm.
But I think that I've taken a little bit different approach, and I'm sure I would encourage anybody to do this. Like, for anybody that's listening, any coaches or whatever, it's just like, be okay with setting some time. Like in our meeting the other day, I set some time apart for like, yes, this biomechanics stuff, all of the HP stuff, phenomenal information. I wanted to educate that athlete.
Mhm.
So I pulled up a picture of like a spine, and I'm like, this is what your spine looks like. This is what it does. This is what I want it to do. Then I showed him like pictures of Araldus Chapman doing it. Then I showed him a picture of like a couple other guys throwing, and I was like, do you see the difference? And I felt like today when he went through his drills finally, I was like, wow, he really understood what I was saying.
Mhm.
And like athletes will care. I think they'll appreciate it even more if you break it down and educate them even more.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any like educational value in terms of like HP stuff, like in those meetings, or anything you would like tell a coach right now? Just be like, hey, like this is something that you can very simply get buy-in from, just like educating an athlete as to why something works.
I think the best way for an athlete to complete a program to the standard that you want them to complete it to
Okay,
is by educating them about everything in the program.
everything.
Just like this exercise, you don't have to go through every single thing,
Yeah.
but this is the brunt of what we want out of it.
Okay.
Um, I program some weird exercises
Yeah.
sometimes. So it's like, this one's weird. This is kind of what you want to do during it. You want to brace here.
Yeah. Okay.
You want to, make sure you're feeling this. By understanding that, instead of just like showing them a video, which the videos help,
For sure.
but by explaining them through it, they get a deeper ability to understand what they're actually going for with that exercise, and they're going to complete it better. So
Okay.
I
I
think
like that.
I think one of the best things you can do as a coach is to either sit down or on the floor, just explain what you want out of that athlete,
Hmm.
and explain the weirder exercises,
Yeah,
the ones they
especially
might
those
not have
ones.
seen
Uh-huh.
before, what they want to do during it, everything like that. Which cueing works, and in a way, some exercises you want to let an athlete figure it out.
Yeah, kind of avoid that. Just like
Yep,
kind of like let them get the freedom to figure that.
yep.
Yeah.
But if you're kind of striving for a movement pattern or something very specific that makes the exercise work the way it does, make sure to cue that in.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that's like something that like in mine, or actually it's one of the ones that's in our warm up. It's like the breathing stuff. Like anything
Mhm.
breathing wise. I feel like breathing stuff just gets like it's really easy to just go
Yep.
and you don't even get anything out of it. Like
Mhm.
I think when you walk a guy through of like, hey, this like a checkpoint almost. So I was thinking of it like hit your checkpoints or hit your check box, like check your boxes before you like actually start your sets. Of like
Mhm.
step one, make sure that I'm like, my back's up against the wall. Step two is like making sure that I am like slightly externally rotated. Step three is like I'm breathing into my upper back, and like I'll have my hand on somebody's back and be like, fill up my hand,
Mhm.
and it's such a difference of like today I did that and like I was like, hey, just go breathe. And I had my hand on, I didn't have my hand on his chest at first. And then I said, okay, now, and I could tell like he was just like belly breathing. And I was like, this isn't going to do anything for his rib cage. I want to get some expansion in there. I was like, hey, breathe through my hand. Immediately, just like all of this
Mhm.
happened. I was like, oh, it's as simple as that. And it's
Yeah.
just like taking the extra 2 minutes as a coach out of your day of just being like, bang, I'm just going to show you how it's done and I'm going to walk you through it. And I think a guy and an athlete will like hold on to that, not just like for that one session. Ultimately, it's up to them to like do it the best of their
Yep.
ability and pay attention to detail like that. Um, but being able to do that like the next day and the next day
Mhm.
and the next day, I feel like it does make a big difference for those guys.
Yeah, the best athletes I've met, the best movers, the best guys in the weight room have enough of an understanding about what they're doing to
Hmm.
be able to accomplish it to a standard.
Yeah,
The guys who just kind of, you know,
roll in.
yeah, the guys who just roll in, they're like, "Oh, this is my program for the day.
Yeah,
Let's do it." And they have no understanding about it at all. They'll get through it,
yeah.
but they might not check all those boxes you're kind of looking for as a
Those
coach.
little
Yep.
details. I feel like that's really important for those guys that like, especially when you get to like the
Mhm.
elite movers or elite strength. It's like
Yeah.
you're no longer building. I always say it's like you're no longer building with like the pyramid of Giza, like those big ass blocks. Like
Mhm.
that's like going from like 75 to 80. Like that's relatively easy. You should be able to do that. Like granted, there's a couple nuances in there, but for the most part, like 75 to 80 is like big blocks. As soon
Yeah.
as you go from like 95 to 97, that's an infinitely it's only 2 miles an hour
Mhm.
compared to let's say 75 to 85 is easier than 95 to 97 because it's so nuanced and those little
Yep.
details that are so small that are so like often overlooked, and athletes like when they really understand that stuff like
Mhm.
you said, I really feel like they can execute it to a T. And that's where like if you do that over the course of a month, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, that's where like year over year compounding effects,
Yep.
you're just going to get better and better and
Yeah.
better, and that's really really awesome to
And,
see.
and you have, let's say you have a graph, you have difficulty on the Y, and you
Okay.
have, I guess, what you have to change
Hmm.
to do that.
Hmm.
It's just logarithmic.
Yeah.
It just
It's
straight up.
just
At
like
at
exponential.
some point, it's that much of a change.
Yeah.
Super hard to do.
But it's still a change, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. You can
Yeah.
still get there. You can still get there for
Yeah.
sure. So damn, yeah, that was a really good. We cut into a really good chunk right there. I
Mhm.
told you it's like this is a very organic setting. I don't like it to be, prepped out. Like I don't think we spoke about anything before we hopped in here. I mean,
No,
we did a tiny bit, but
we had
like
like, this is kind of what I want to touch
yeah.
on.
But like I feel like those are the best. What did I say? I was like, we'll probably end up hitting something and it'll just go from there.
Yeah.
I feel like those are the best conversations. And I honestly like I really wish we would have if it was like what was the conversation me, you, Grayson, Gargus, Pisani,
Pisani.
Maddox. I think we were all just like sitting in the throwing area and like we were just like bullshit. It was probably an hour, right? We just
Mhm.
had like a little hour powwow and it was like I love those moments because I love being able to work with all you guys, and I think team collaboration is so huge because I know for me personally, like I like to have people like I like people like you. You ask me why,
Mhm.
because then you piss me off, and then it pisses me off to the point to where I want to know,
Yep.
not because I want to. Well, okay, in the short term, I'm like, fuck Nick, I'm gonna fucking tell him. I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna tell Nick exactly how it works now because I bet he doesn't even know. No, but like then it just makes me like.
Sometimes I don't.
I know you're just saying why you're a dick. That's so funny. I'm gonna start doing that to you. Like why you're like, why don't know? At one point or another, I'm gonna hit you with that. But yeah, I feel like it's just like you guys are able to push me, and I feel like that's so big for
Mhm.
coaches. Like you have to be surrounded by like-minded individuals. If you're just like the only guy, it's really hard. I was telling, I think I was telling my girlfriend about this the other day. I was like, if you want to go somewhere fast, what is the old adage? Like, you want to go somewhere fast, you go alone. You can go to
Mhm.
the top of the mountain really fast. You ain't got to wait for anybody. You can go there. You can put, 10 hours of work in a day, do it on your own. If you want to go far, you better go with a clan or a
Mhm.
tribe or a
Yep.
team or a group. You know what I mean? Like, you have to have other people that are going, because I know there are days where I just roll in here and I'm like, man, I'm stressed. I have something else going on in my life. I have either like, some family stuff. I have some relationship stuff. I have something else going on that's kicking my ass. And then I get in here and then Gargus, has his fucking cup of coffee and I'm just so like, God damn it, I work in a damn good place with some good people. I
Yeah.
really should bring it today. That's really, really valuable. So yeah, I always appreciate your insight with all that stuff. So keep doing that to me, even though
Yeah.
I might get frustrated in the short term.
And I think I want to touch on, you said like-minded individuals. I agree, but I also agree that you need individuals with different philosophies. So
Absolutely.
like-minded in the way of the grind,
Yes.
different
Big picture.
philosophies. Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So like Kaz has a different philosophy than Pisani, who has a different philosophy
Absolutely.
than me. And one of the things I learned back at Michigan State, when I was interning there,
Mhm.
one of the first things I was kind of told was that they pick coaches so that they can create a melting pot of philosophy.
That's really cool.
No one coaches the same,
Mhm.
but being able to like see a part of someone else and being like, I really like that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna add that into mine.
Take,
Yeah.
take,
And
take.
and of
Yeah.
course if you add it in, because in my opinion, any coaching field is philosophy. There's some science.
Yeah.
But you kind of have to build off the science to create your philosophy and then push the field farther.
Yeah.
Um, of course, you pick up that philosophy. Maybe you kind of try and add it in. Like I said, try and work with it. It
Yeah.
doesn't work.
You gotta try
Yeah,
and find another
yeah,
one.
throw it out.
I
And
like
it's
that.
it's just like that.
Yeah, I think we do a really good job of that. Like the way I program for certain guys is totally different. Like
Mhm.
one of the things that I thought Maddox did a good job with over I think it was last college off season. I didn't really understand it why in the moment. I was like, that's it's just different. Like and everybody's knee jerk reaction when you do something different is like, why?
Mhm.
I hate to interrupt your show.
Oh man.
Here's some lunch for you.
Oh, I brought some lunch. Is this from my friend?
Yeah.
Oh, what is chicken wraps? My guy. Did he leave? I'll have to give him a hug. All right, I'll see him tomorrow. Thank you, Coach Gargus. Wow, what a drop in. You didn't even say hi to the people. Do you want to hop in here? At least say hi to the people? Get down here. Coach Gargus, baby. Let's go. Free lunch. Thank you. You're good. You're good. Thank you. Thank you. How nice. That was unexpected.
Yeah, completely.
No, so where were we? We were going off of like-minded
Schools.
individuals philosophy.
Melting pots.
Oh yeah,
like that.
Maddox was only doing one velo day a week, and I was kind of like, I've never done that before. I was like, I don't know if I like it. I don't know if I love it. I don't know if I hate it. I was really impartial. Really, I
Mhm.
was just like, cool. He had a different idea. I'm never gonna knock anybody for trying something new. He had a good
Yeah.
idea behind it. I asked him. He was basically the TLDR, which means like too long didn't read. By the way, is like a lot of the college guys or a couple of the college guys that he had doing it he felt like we're not going to recover enough. Their HP numbers were very, very low.
Mhm.
And he was like, I wanted them to sell out for the weight room, even though we were going to do velocity. It was not the thing that like their mechanics were, average or slightly above average or whatever, but their strength was really lacking. He was like,
Mhm.
I wanted to make sure that they were recovered for those lifting days. And I was like, damn, that's actually a really good idea, because I actually had that with an athlete about a month ago that he was just like, man, I gave him an A day on Monday and an A day on Friday, which is an 80 to 90% day with some compression throws. And this dude was just blown up. He like ended up not lifting on Friday because he was like, I'm just so tired. And like yeah, sometimes, yeah, I get it. But like, sometimes you're like, I got to power through it. Other times it's like, dude, I am just like that tired. I thought that was a very interesting way of going about that. And it's just like, that's a totally different philosophy. It's not like there's not science behind it, because there's science to prove 3 velo days a week. I'm sure, maybe not. Maybe 2, 1, 2, which is very traditional. There used, way back in the day, it was 2, 2. It was Monday, Friday, Monday, Friday, Monday, Friday. That obviously evolved, and that's a good thing. But it just comes from like different philosophy and like having different opinions. And like, as long as you have, like I've said before, like as long as you have the best interests of the athletes at heart, that's really all that matters.
Yeah, and one of the great things about here is when I sat next to Logan
I love that guy.
I don't fully agree with what he said, but he said it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. And obviously might not be the best quote.
Yeah,
but
I hear him though.
It flies pretty well here. Like, you have an idea, you try it out.
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't work. Just don't do it again.
Yeah, for sure. Like, don't beat it into the ground and be like, it has to work. It's
Exactly.
like, no, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And I think even within those failures, you're going to learn about like, why did it's going to probably irritate you, or at least should if you care about it. It's like, why didn't it work?
Yeah.
And what can I back chain to see if I can make it work?
Yeah, no one's gonna yell at you.
No.
You might have to explain yourself a little bit.
Yeah,
but-
depending on the agreed, like
Yeah.
how egregious it was.
Yeah,
but
but no one's gonna yell at you. They're gonna be like, okay, now we know that doesn't work.
yeah.
Let's not do it again.
Yeah, probably not. But again, like that initial thought, like the old, just because you, what is it? Is it Michael Jordan? He's like, I never lost any games. I just learned how to not win. It's kind of that sense of like, you know what? I never am actually truly losing. I'm just figuring out ways so I don't fail again. And it's the same thing in coaching. Like, get out of your comfort zone. If you're a coach listening to this, like, get out of your comfort zone. Go see what. Have a general idea, a really good concept, something that you really believe in, and just go try it out.
Yeah.
Go try it out and see what happens. Because the worst case scenario is like, you'll never know. And that has to eat at you as a person.
Yeah. One of the biggest things I've noticed growing as a coach is, of course, there's all the science behind it, and you can follow the science to a T.
You could, yeah.
The science is going to grow. But at the pace that whatever sport you're in is also growing, you're going to be a little behind.
Yeah.
At some point, you have to use your philosophy that you've kind of accumulated and try things out.
Yep.
Like some of the things I do have a little bit of science behind them, and then I'm like, this still might work really well.
Yeah.
Let's try it out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's like plyo balls. I mean, that's how Driveline came to be. It was like, general idea that should work.
Yeah.
People really laughed at Kyle and when he started throwing plyo balls and doing all the biomechanics and all that shit. And we were kind of like when I trained here, it was like 2015, 2016. It was kind of like, I laughed because we were like the land of the lost, like the land of the thrown away dolls that nobody wanted. It was like we were just willing to like try anything and everything to get better. And now I look at it and I'm like, wow, it has evolved into just so much more than that. And there's so much science behind it now. And we're so good at it. I mean, it's crazy how good we are at it. But it's like it all started with like one guy, our Kyle, our Jefe, of just like asking a question of like, I want to figure this shit out. And I think this is going to work. Imagine if he like wouldn't have taken that leap of faith and tried. Like maybe this place, maybe baseball and like now plyo balls are accepted pretty much everywhere for the most part. Imagine if he never would have done that.
Yeah, and failing sucks. Like,
for sure.
Like
it hurts.
I'm a little afraid of failing sometimes, but it's the idea that sure, I ran that study last summer.
Yeah.
Completely inconclusive. I maybe saw some trends.
Yeah.
But I found out why it didn't work. I'm going to apply it to
So
make
much
it work
cooler.
this time.
So much cooler.
It's like, it was a failure. Yeah, my intern project failed. It was inconclusive. But there's growth off of that. There's things you can pull from it, apply it, make it work the next time. If it doesn't work this time, there's nothing I can do at that point. Like, I've applied everything I can to attempt to make it work, to attempt to make the variability as the least amount as possible.
Mm-hmm.
If it doesn't work, throw on another project.
You got to keep going.
Try something else.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going. And that's probably the biggest reason why you were probably hired. Is just like, wow, this guy has like this burning desire to like figure this shit out, and it is hard. It like you said, it sucks to fail, but it's ultimately way more important than the fact that you're like, I'm gonna figure out why. Because there's a lot of people that would just like get like fail and just like, I'm calling it a day. I ain't gonna touch that again. I suck. But you took it to heart and you were like, no, it hurt for like, I don't know, probably 10 minutes. And then you were like, all right, I know you. It probably hurt for like 5 minutes. And you're like, all right, fuck it. Let's find another thing. Let's try another one.
Yeah.
And that's huge for like growth, development, and ultimately like one of the bigger reasons I
Yeah.
really enjoy working with you. So really, really cool.
Yeah, I kind of sucked. I worked on this analysis code for how long? Like 6
God,
to
I
8 lines.
remember.
And then I ran it through and I was like, there's no significance. Like you can kind of see it, but you can also see where like the days I knew weren't gonna work didn't work. So let's go off it.
That's so funny. I remember you like just being like head down, like I just remember looking at your screen and being like, what the hell is that guy? Like it was just like scripts on scripts on scripts, and I was like, geez, because you know who also was next to me was Whitey.
Yeah, and
Do you remember
Whitey did the
Whitey? He
same
was doing
thing.
the jump app.
Yeah.
And I would just ask him, and like, Whitey's now our director, Connor White, really smart guy, great person, up in Washington now. But like, I sat next to him when he was making that jump app thing, and like, it came from like a really like rudimentary idea of like there was some other thing that they used for the jump. I don't know. There was some other like AI it was used for.
It was impulse momentum based
Yeah.
off force plates. Can we do that with computer vision?
Pretty
That's
much.
basically what it was.
Yeah, and so I was like, damn, like that's a really cool idea. But like, keep in mind, Whitey doesn't have a background in software engineering, coding, anything like that. He did it all on his own. What the hell? That's insane. And I looked over and I just remember him like asking Kyle for help with coding because he's very good at that. Jared Skolnicki, who works here, he's awesome. He's really good with coding. And just like other people that are like obviously better at it, but he didn't even like ask for them to like do it for him. I'm sure he could have, and I'm sure it would have been like easier for him and way less of a headache. But he was like, hey, can you just like help me out like a little bit? Just like show me like what I'm missing here. And then would go like, okay, thank you. And then like walk away and like go do it again by himself.
Yeah.
Like that is like huge self-initiative and ultimately probably the biggest reason why he's our director. Just like that dude is going to push us in the right direction. Damn right. Like
being able to
full.
take something on and learn it, even though you know nothing. Like when I started research at MSU, my first semester there, I was just analyzing data points that were already done previous semester. They're like download MATLAB and have at it.
Wow, they
Like,
said that?
Yeah, absolutely no kind of like here's a MATLAB background, anything like that. Of course, I could always like Microsoft Teams message my PI or the grad student I was working with and ask a little bit, but they never gave me a full code. It was like, hey, this really isn't working. And she'd send me like this for loop to, pull the files out. Nicely. And I'd be like, okay, thanks. And then I just go at it again.
That's impressive, man.
I probably spent the whole semester just like in my little dorm room on my futon, just like right here. My buddy that I met, best friend now, he was a computer science major at his old college.
Okay.
So he had like some Python in there, a little bit of HTML. He moved over to mechanical engineering and he was kind of done with code. And so he'd look at it and he knew nothing about MATLAB either. But we were just kind of sitting there. I'd be like, dude, this really isn't working. And he was like, you might be missing this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, let's try it.
Yeah, let's just try it.
Yeah.
Damn. That's really cool, man. It's super impressive to like just like saying these things out loud and then realizing I'm like, damn, like I was there when Whitey started the whole jump app thing. Like, that's a really cool idea.
Yeah, and I think learning something like that, like code is a perfect example of like you're going to fail so many times at trying to write something. Just keep going with it.
I know.
Yeah, and then you apply that to every other aspect of your life, of your journey. It's like you're going to fail. You're gonna learn something from it though. And
For
you
sure.
probably won't do that same.
Yeah, you probably won't do the same thing
failure
again, so you keep
but
failing.
You're gonna end up doing something similar.
Logan's probably listening to this right now. Or maybe he will, maybe he won't. This is a test, Logan. Text me if you end up watching this and you get to this part. He's been urging me to do coding.
Yeah.
I've been getting into the stuff that we already talked about, but man, like it's so daunting. It's so scary. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to do it, but it is going to take a lot of time to do. And I think it is a little bit of like, I'm nervous to like, because I know the whom hole and the rabbit hole you can go down with it. And I think it's nerve wracking to know like I could end up spending 8 hours and it's like, now, I say worthless, but it's like, it could amount to nothing.
Yeah. And there's a reason I do all my stuff here on MATLAB, even though like we mainly use Python and R, which I kind of know R.
Yeah.
But I'm very familiar with MATLAB. If I sat down and learned Python, I'm sure I could.
Yeah.
But like, it's not really necessary, and that it's such a headache. To learn. But that's almost the fun part.
I guess so. Of like tackling a task and proving it to yourself, and like kind of like getting beat up a little bit, coming back, winning, and then eventually evolving into something that's really, really cool and actionable. All right. Well, we're at like 55 minutes. Typically, all right. I got one more question for you because I've asked everybody that comes on here. You have no idea of this question. I did not tell you. I've learned because I gave somebody else the last time to prepare for this shit, and I was not. Their answer was crazy.
Okay.
You walk into the baseball, like, where do you go to Tigers games at all?
Not frequently.
Okay, you go to baseball games every. You went to a game last night.
Yeah, I went.
Okay, Louis, you saw Louis? I miss that guy. Okay, Kyle.
Oh yeah.
I call Kyle Louis. I don't know why. Anyway, okay, you go to the park, you sit down. You're like, it's the third inning. You get hungry. You have to get something to eat there. Okay, what are you getting at the ballpark? They have everything. They have everything you could imagine. I'm not giving you any hints.
Yeah.
You have to pick something.
I feel like you gotta get a hot dog.
Okay.
Yeah.
What toppings do you put on that thing?
I'm boring. I just like ketchup.
Oh, thank
Yeah,
God.
I'm boring.
Grayson said nothing.
Nothing.
Just plain old hot dog. And I
Yeah.
was like, are we kidding, man? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it ended up being a hilarious clip at the end of the day. Anyway, but
I
it
mean,
was
at that
so
ASU
funny.
game, they had Chick-fil-A, but
Oh,
dude, it was so expensive.
Really?
Yeah. I just
See, like-
couldn't fork that out.
I talked that about Arizona, like the Diamondbacks. Like, me and Grayson talked about when I said this question. Like, dude, they have like a value menu there.
Mhm.
And I know that there's some places that have something similar that's like $5 for a hot dog. I went to LSU like a couple weeks back, and like I could go spend $20 there and get like a burger, probably like some chips, a drink, and if I'm of age, so I had a Coors Light with it. They have a Coors Light and it has an LSU Tiger on it, and
That's
it's a
sick.
purple and it's all striped. I'm like, wow,
That's sick.
out of respect for this, I have to have one. I probably spent like $20, $25.
Yeah.
Respectable.
The course
Okay,
was what,
So
15?
Jessica, what's that?
Course
Yeah,
was 15?
boy, it's like 12. Either way, this is like it's like water there. It was so humid. So yeah. Okay, catch up. Thank God.
Yeah, that's it.
I'll leave us with this. I was playing golf with my dad, Kaz, and Gargus when we went to the turn. And I'm like there, and the lady goes, my dad's like, hey, you want a hot dog? I was like, yes, please. I'm starving. We just went at like 6 a.m. It was so early to kind of beat the heat. And so she goes, okay. My dad looks and he goes, we're Polish, by the way. And so my dad goes, yeah, I'll take relish, mustard. And she's like, what do you want, honey? I go, what do you guys have? And she goes, we have pretty much everything. Oh, also, I have sauerkraut back here. I go, give me the sauerkraut. I made the most monstrosity of a hot dog, and it was phenomenal. I put hot mustard on it. I put, she had like chopped onions on it. I put sauerkraut on it and just a tad bit of relish, and it was just great. So try that. Try sauerkraut. You like sauerkraut?
Sauerkraut's fine, yeah.
All right, good.
Yeah.
Apparently it's good for me, so I'm in on that.
I could do onions too. I've never actually
I like an
done
onion
it,
dog.
though. Yeah.
Yeah, it gives a little bit of like bitterness, I guess, to it. So, all right, man. Well, it was an absolute pleasure. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. This was a really, really good one. So, if you made it this far, we really appreciate you. Thank you for watching, supporting, commenting, liking the videos. You know, I know I've had friends, family that have reached out to me and just like DM'd me on Instagram, on Twitter, texted me. I just want to say like my most heartfelt thank you to all you guys that watch and support us, because like honestly, this is a lot of fun. I'm sure, I can almost guarantee that you will be back on here, whether you like it or not. I will bribe you, or I will sit you into that chair and just so you have to stay and converse with me, because it was such a good conversation. So thank you to all you guys watching. If you have anything, Nick, do you have any closing thoughts? You have anything you'd like to say to the folks back home?
No, I'll just say to give it up for Daulton.
Give it up for me.
Yeah,
You're
doing
nuts.
Doing all these.
You're crazy. You're crazy.
These are great. I love it.
They're a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you. You're the man. Thank you for a great
Appreciate it.
conversation, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.